All right, y'all. I'm in kind of a conundrum here because I do think the basketball that will be played in these upcoming NBA finals will be fun and good to watch. But I have been trying to at least think about it from multiple perspectives, this finals between the Thunder and the Pacers. But I tried to think about it from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to pick OKC. Everybody's picking OKC. But how can the Pacers beat the Thunder, right? Rewatching the two regular season games, even though there were injuries, for the Thunder and the Pacers in both matchups. Listening to podcasts, listening to a lot of Caitlin Cooper appearing on these podcasts too, which just makes me infinitely smarter because she's so good at what she does covering the Pacers. Just trying to think of ways to think about the series in a different way that's not just a video of me talking about why I think OKC will win. And I guess what I'm really getting at is I have to give an honest assessment of this series. If you could tell on the history of my channel, I have been both high on the Pacers and the Thunder, and the Pacers especially after they traded for Tyrese Haliburton. But I also can't try to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian or, go against the grain or whatever. Because I do think OKC is a special team. I guess where my mind goes first, like everybody else, it goes to the Pacers offense versus the Thunder defense. But really, I also wonder what the Pacers are going to do offensively, and if there are ways to short circuit the Thunder's offense in the half court at least. Because there have been times throughout, this OKC run where, the shooters like Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso's been shooting well from three, but letting Jalen Williams shoot, letting Chet Holmgren shoot, letting Lou Dort shoot, you're not really frantically closing out to those guys. So if the Thunder don't make a good chunk of their threes, then the offense gets really tough for them, right? And of course, I think the Pacers have a few options to throw at Shea, though I don't really think they'll work because Shea is just that good. But Andrew Nembhard, obviously, in the two regular season matchups, he was guarding Shea. Ben Shepherd guarded him a little bit. I'm sure we'll see some Nesmith on Shea as well, but I think Jalen Williams has been so good since Game 7 of that Nuggets series. One, he's always been driving to the basket, but two, it looks like at least the midi and the three have been coming along more recently. The last handful of playoff games, Jalen Williams has somehow gotten better and has showed up in big games. Nesmith is probably going to have to guard Jalen Williams as well. I imagine Pascal Siakam, he's going to be, roaming off of the weakest shooter and is going to try to muck things up as a help defender, as somebody pinching on the drives, which OKC is going to want to do. Or, OKC wants to find ways to drive, get Shea downhill, whether it's a dribble handoff with Hartenstein, whether it's a pick and roll with Chet Holmgren, or, picking on the weakest defender in the Pacers lineup, which will be Tyrese Haliburton. I'm sure they're going to find ways to move Miles Turner around away from the rim, but really, it'll be interesting to see how the Pacers at least react to the shooting that's surrounding Shea and the Thunder. Don't know how much zone will work because OKC has seen a fair amount of zone in these playoffs, and it seems like they have passed every test and have gotten better. So I don't even know if zone will necessarily work, but I think what Indiana is obviously going to do is try to show Shea a crowd. They're going to try to make Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren beat them, but Jalen Williams is going to have to try to, get through Aaron Nesmith, who is impossible to screen. Don't know how much that ankle is going to impact him. I thought his movement was a little bit restricted towards the back end of the Knicks series, but hopefully a few days off will give Nesmith some time on that ankle to, chase around Jalen Williams. If the Pacers are going to get stops, it's going to obviously have to be in the half court because I think in transition and pace where they thrive, I think the Thunder also thrive in that. The Thunder, I think, were top 3 in pace this year per NBA.com, and the Pacers want to go lightning fast, even after made baskets. And I think the Thunder are uniquely equipped to play in that same kind of frenetic, chaotic pace. But in the half court, I think there could be ways to slow OKC down. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just so good. And Nesmith, Shepherd, Siakam, Nembhard, they're all really going to have to show out. And Miles Turner is really going to have to erase everything on the back end. Because boy, oh boy, is that Thunder defense a monster. It's a monster. It's really one of the best defenses I have seen ever. And it's not just because, you know, the stats look good and stuff like that. There's so many layers as to why this OKC Thunder defense is one of the best ever. They have all NBA level perimeter defenders littered across the board, between Lou Dort, between Jalen Williams, between Caruso, between Case and Wallace. SGA is no slouch, and I imagine the Pacers are going to try to involve SGA in more actions, even though Shai is a, you know, good defender. He's not always guarding the best player. I'm sure the Pacers are going to try to involve Shai some just to wear him down and make him less effective on the offensive end. But then you get past that, and there's Isaiah Hartenstein's big ass waiting for you down there. There's Chet Holmgren waiting for you at the rim. If they want to play one big, it's just going to be Chet Holmgren at the rim and also switching. And then moving beyond the fact that they have all these all-NBA caliber defenders, they are all on a string. Anthony Edwards talked about it, you know, after the series was over in the Western Conference Finals, but they really are like 15 puppets on a string. And because they have such chemistry and know what to do when it comes to rotations and flying around, they're able to make help decisions that are unconventional because they are so fast and athletic. They will be able to recover. Again, their chemistry, they know what their guy is going to do, and so they cover for that person. They are just on a complete string. It's really like, I was trying to think of a football analogy for this. There's actually a few other sports analogies you can make when it comes to this matchup between the Pacers offense and the Thunder's defense. This really reminds me of, you know, the 2013 Super Bowl between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks, where everyone thought the Seahawks defense was becoming legendary, but they hadn't faced an offense like the Denver Broncos before, where they could spread it out and air you out. Mind you, the Legion of Boom is one of the best secondaries of all time now, but at the time it was like, can they really, you know, show their defense out against Peyton Manning? Well, the answer was an emphatic yes, to the tune of one of the biggest ass whoopings I have ever seen. And as a Niner fan, I'm definitely not bitter, because if we had won that NFC Championship game, I liked our chances against the Broncos. But going into this series, I was glad the Pacers won, because I think their offense actually can peel some things back from OKC's defense. I think the Knicks, the way they run their offense, OKC, they have been shutting that shit down all playoffs with, you know, shutting down Edwards, being able to just load up on Jokic. And the Knicks offense runs through two guys primarily. And OKC's defense is just too good to, you know, get overwhelmed by that. The Pacers offense, you don't really know where the scoring can come from. But weirdly, the Thunder's defense is almost like a fast break offense, just a pure fast break offense, because they fly around so much. They get in the passing lanes, they deflect everything. And then not only do they turn the defense into offense, they don't fuck around in transition. If they get a steal, they are going to the rim. They are not running to, you know, you'll have some shooters run out to the three-point line or whatever, but whoever gets that steal, they have a straight line, eyes locked on the rim. They're going to dunk that shit, unless obviously the Pacers get back and cover the rim before the Thunder get there, etc. But the Pacers want to play at a breakneck pace on offense, and the Thunder thrive in a chaotic, frenetic pace. It's almost like, I mean, Zach Lowe made the joke, the Bane joke, you know, from Dark Knight Rises, where it's like, you're merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it. And it's like, there's not a more truer analogy than that, man. You see the NBA.com stat where it's like, the Thunder have the most 10-0 runs of any team in NBA history. And 2 Warriors teams from 2021-22, and then one of the Kevin Durant teams was on that list, and the Thunder still led that category by far. And I said it before on this channel, but this Thunder defense is in some ways like, those Warriors teams, those Spurs teams, those Heat teams, where they have an identity that's so special on the defensive end that they can create quick 10-0 runs just out of thin air. And all of a sudden, you're overwhelmed. And that defense thrives in the type of environment that the Pacers offense likes to thrive in. So it's a really fascinating matchup from that perspective. I think the Pacers are going to have to manufacture more ways, whether it's running multiple actions in one possession like they always do. They're going to have to find ways to get Tyrese Haliburton downhill to touch the paint, because if Tyrese Haliburton is sitting here only taking 3 shots in the first quarter like he did in Game 6 against the Knicks, or if the ball pressure from Mikal Bridges and Landry Shamet in Game 5, if that's going to bother him, what is OKC going to do against Haliburton? The thing that's been so special with Haliburton during most of his time with the Pacers is that he had found this balance that's very hard to find between being an aggressive scorer and shooter while also being one of the best playmakers in the league. And for a while, especially last year, the hamstring injury kind of threw things off, and then he obviously struggled a little bit to start out this season. But mostly, he's been really good at finding that balance while also not turning the ball over. That's what makes him special. But they're going to have to find ways to get Tyrese Haliburton downhill, because the Thunder are definitely going to have their pickup point higher. The Pacers have really been pressuring the ball full court with Nembhard, Nesmith, Ben Shepherd, etc. Well, the Thunder have a lot of guys that can do that. And then the other thing that comes to my mind is, can the Pacers still be effective taking advantage of switching matchups like they have been throughout the playoffs in the East? Because I'm telling you right now, the Thunder are going to be just fine with Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, or whoever switching on to Siakam. One, because of the help that's going to be right behind the initial defender. But 2, the initial defender, they are fine guarding up. Jalen Williams, too, by the way. That's one of the reasons why this Thunder defense is so good and versatile. Jalen Williams at 6'6" can guard up. Guarded Julius Randle well. Guarded Jokic some. But it was mainly, Caruso was the main small guy defending Jokic whenever they wanted to put a small ball option on him. But Jalen Williams is good at guarding up. So is Caruso. So is Cason Wallace, even though he's not as effective at it. The Thunder defense basically just invites you to attack them however you want to attack them, because they can change on the spot. They could go small ball. They could go double big. They could go one big. And the Pacers are going to have to find a way to keep sustaining the Pascal Siakam taking advantage of switches, because that was the Pacers' curveball also, which is why Siakam has been so good in these playoffs. They're going to have to find ways to get Siakam the ball at the top, get him on some favorable matchups, maybe even attack Hartenstein more, involve Hartenstein in some actions, because I'm sure Hartenstein is going to be guarding Siakam, or at least, quote-unquote guarding Siakam, meaning he's going to sag off of him and give up those corner threes or the three-pointer and just play the drive and then help. Miles Turner also is going to have to really not allow, because they are definitely going to put a small on Miles Turner if the Thunder go one big, or obviously no bigs. But Miles Turner can't be out-physicaled on the block. And not that you want to, post up Miles Turner 20 times a game, but when it's a pick and roll and the Thunder switch that, they're going to have to find ways to deliver the entry pass earlier on the roll, get Miles Turner in some type of rhythm going to the basket so he can score. I also think what I worry for the Pacers is the Thunder themselves, they aren't like this elite offensive rebounding team, but they can crash the glass, and Isaiah Hartenstein is a good offensive rebounder. And by the way, Isaiah Hartenstein was tough to keep off the glass all playoffs last year with the Knicks versus the Sixers, versus the Pacers. Even though the Pacers won that series, Hartenstein was just a monster on the glass, and that is one way to kind of kill off the Pacers' fast pace. I feel like there's ways the Pacers can make this a series, but I don't think it's enough to beat this Thunder team. Because at the end of the day, you could short-circuit OKC's offense a little bit, but you're never going to short-circuit that defense. And look, Pacers fans, you know, you're going to be fans. You have a right to be mad that everybody's probably picking the Thunder. And if I am wrong, you could take this entire preview that I just did, and you could clip it, make jokes about it, roast me, whatever. You will absolutely deserve it if you pull this series off. And I do think these are the two best teams standing. I think the Pacers were the best team in the East. I think the Thunder were the best team in the West in these playoff runs, in their respective playoff runs. And this is the matchup we should be having. It's two frenetic teams that play in very unique ways. But at the end of the day, this Thunder team is special. They're a 68-win team. They have the league MVP. Their defense is an all-time great defense. And I just can't shake the fact that OKC is going to win in 5.